Hello and welcome back to my channel, and thank you for joining me today on my Around the World in 80 Days in my journal. So I started this journey around the middle of August, and because I was missing travelling because of all the restrictions, I decided to take a virtual tour around the world in my journal. For this I have used an old leather notebook cover. I've recycled and reused the paper from the notebook and created 3 sort of junk journal inserts. So I've combined the original paper, notebook paper, with some vintage paper, book pages, music paper, that kind of thing. So I created 3 inserts. I also created this insert pocket as well, which runs through the whole front and back. And in here I've got my travel documents and my world map, and also my passport as well. And I've been stamping my passport as I've been virtually visiting the different locations. So right now I've arrived at Istanbul, and I'm going to be continuing my journey and doing a journal with me session today. So you can watch the first part of my journey across Europe via the Orient Express in another video. I'll put the link below. But today we're going to do a journal with me session as I arrive in Moscow. So I'm just going to take the insert out from the cover, just so that it's a little bit easier to work with. So my last entry here was for Constantinople or Istanbul as it's known now. And so today we are going to Moscow. So I've written some journaling for this location already, and the date of course is the 27th of August 1891, and I write: when Grand Duke Sergei Alexandrokov became Governor General of Moscow early this year, he named one of his goals as being "Save Moscow from the Jews." An imperial decree which was promulgated ordering the expulsion from the city and government in Moscow of all Jewish artisans, brewers and distillers. This was not something that was recognised by the rest of the world. The exposition of Russia and the visit from France to Moscow took place this year also. Music and dance is a large part of the Russian culture, and while I was here I enjoyed visiting the Russian ballet. So that's my entry. I do a little bit of research really just on the internet, and I look at what was happening at those particular places in that year, in the late 1800s. You know, I take some artistic license, as you were, because I don't always stick exactly to the particular year that we talk about, but I do some research around that sort of era. And then I go online and I look for different ephemera, photographs mainly, or anything that relates to that particular time in that country or city. So I found some lovely Russian pattern, this paisley, which was quite a common design in their interiors at that time. I found a lovely painting by a Russian artist, again around that time. And then I found a selection of photographs, and these were taken in the late 1800s, so they pretty accurately depict the time that I'm travelling. So there's quite a few photographs of some really lovely historical buildings in Moscow. I found this other lovely picture of these Russian ladies as well. This is probably more rural, but I really liked that as well. And then this was some sort of design poster as well that was from around that era, maybe a little bit later, but I also quite like that to put in there. And then I found this very old postage stamp from Russia around that time too. I also have this really old book. It's in French. It was written by Jules Verne, who of course was also the writer of Around the World in 80 Days. I picked this up in a French brocante a couple of years ago now, and it's called The Voyages Extraordinaire, and it's a series that he wrote about extraordinary travels of different characters. This one was César Cascabel, which basically they were a travelling circus, a French travelling circus, who travelled across, mainly across the United States, but then also making their way back to France, also travelled across Russia. So I did find quite a nice illustration in here that I thought I might include in my journal. So I've pulled that out. So that's quite a lovely scene, clearly in a Russian village or town. So I thought I would also include that in this particular spread. So let's get going. So in terms of the pages that I create in this journal, obviously I like to have the travel theme in mind. I have collected various different bits and pieces for this particular journal. I keep a box here with kind of travel related ephemera that I've maybe collected over time. So there's sort of travel luggage tags and postcards and that kind of thing. So there's sort of map tissue, and then of course all my other bits of ephemera and stuff like that. So I did collect this at the beginning, and I'm using that throughout my journaling sessions for this particular journal. Even though these are obviously mostly vintage imageries and photographs, I do like to also add some distress to them, aging distress, and I basically use a combination of my favourites, which are walnut stain, and I also use tea dye and the vintage photo. There are my favourite of the distress inks for basically aging photos. So I'm going to start by aging these photographs, and I'll just do maybe a combination of these. I won't do them maybe all the same. So, and if you've not distressed photos or journal cards and like that before, basically you just you have one of these sponge dabbers. So these actually come off, so you can have lots of different ones for different colour inks, and then just change them over. And then to distress the edge of the photograph, it's really kind of just a flicking motion on the edge of the paper. So you hold the paper and then it's just a flicking. So you're just really catching that edge of the piece of card or paper in this case. I tend to sort of just put a little bit more maybe on the corners. And if the paper is quite white and you want it to just discolour a little bit more, you can obviously rub a little bit of this over the front. But this one is quite sort of not that white, but you can even do that. If you want to distress and make it even look a little bit more authentically old, you could perhaps put a little tear as well in the photograph, because of course over time photographs did get torn, and then you would just distress the tear as well, like that. So it just makes it look a little bit more authentic, and you might want to give it a sort of gentle scrumple just to add to that sort of older effect. So this one I'll maybe use some tea dye ink. For these, because they're quite a sort of very similar colours, I tend to use the same sponge. I don't worry too much about changing them over just for these colours. So this one is tea dye. I find that this one is maybe a little bit more orangey in colour than the vintage photo, which is more kind of sepia, I would say. Whereas the tea dye, you'll find a little bit more orangey in colour And it just gives some variation on your page so that you're not tied down though. So this one's got a little bit white, so I'm just gently sort of rubbing the sponge as well over the front of the photograph. And then for another one I will use this walnut stain. So this one is quite dark. This is a sort of darker brown colour. And again, I'm just flicking that across the edge. Okay, so I'll continue this off camera and join me back when I've finished. Okay, so we've distressed our bits of ephemera and photographs there. And I also grabbed a few more pieces from my box, which I think I might use on this page. When I start using it, I don't always use everything because clearly sometimes it's a bit too much. But some of the things I definitely want to incorporate is this lovely pattern, this paisley pattern. So I'm kind of thinking I might put some in the corner here and in that corner there. So I'm just going to tear some off here for this corner here, and then I think I might have some in the opposite corner there. So I'll put some in this corner as well, and for now I'm just placing them. I'm not sticking them down, I'm just placing them just to get a feel for what the page might look like. Clearly I'm very keen to use this as well, so I think I'm just going to cut this edge here and probably use it in this corner here and maybe just tear. It tears so easily because it is a generally really old book page. And these are really nice pieces of vintage paper, so I do keep all of that. So I think this will go in this bottom corner, and I might have that overlapping somewhere like that. So that creates quite a nice feature. I want to keep some of this music paper in the background showing because, you know, the music and dance was a big part of the culture in Russia, so that's quite good to have that there. Because around that time, as I spoke about in my writing, with regard to the French exposition that visited Russia, so I've got a little bit of French ephemera, so I'm going to include some of that as well. These are some sort of collaging strips that I bought. I'll put the link below. So I'm just maybe going to use some of that in this corner maybe. Yeah, so again I'll just tear this. And anything that I tear, I do usually like to again distress the edge. So I think that will go there. Got some more French ephemera here, but I've got quite a lot of photographs still to include on this page, so I've really got to see what I can use. Now, clearly, I'm not going to be able to probably put all these photos. I really like this one, so that's definitely going to go in. I think I might put that here, actually. On this page. I might just sort of cut actually the edge off that corpus a little bit big. In fact, you can even tear, obviously, photographs, which I've just decided I'm going to tear this instead. And I'll just stress that before I stick it in. So yeah, so that can go in there. And then we've got all these pictures of buildings. Again, I probably don't have enough room for all of them, so I'm probably I want some of that Russian writing to show, and the music. So again, I'm gonna probably put that one there. We could put a little one down here. Maybe this one. Problem is that's covering up all the music, which I didn't want to do. So I think I'm gonna actually leave these ones out and just have these here. We've got a little bit of music peeking through, not as much as I'd like, but there we go. These things happen. We've got that little bit of ephemera there, which I might just put sort of there. We've got this stamp, which could just go on the edge corner there, something like that. I've also created these sort of tabs, which I'm putting on a few of the pages. So I might add one of these to this page. So we'll just sort of have that ready. And then I did have this painting, but again, I'm running out of space here. Although we could maybe use, I'm thinking perhaps even use it instead of this. Or even, I really do want to use this if I can. If it's the main lady, so let's just trim this down. Maybe I could put her here. Okay, that's quite a full page now coming on. And I have got some stamps. I've also got one other bit that I want to add, which I'll show you at the end, but I think I have space for that right there. Okay, so now that I'm kind of quite happy with that, I just want to distress the edges of the torn pieces that I'm including, and kind of just maybe just darken the edges of this a little bit. We've done this, but I just want to add some distressing to that ripped edge there, and then we'll just stick these down and just distress the edges of these two. So, you know, we're really wanting the overall look of my journal to be very old. You know, I want it to look like it survived the years from 1891. And, you know, she's Nettie Bly, who is my character, based on the real Nellie Bly, who circumnavigated the globe in 1889, I believe, and a couple of years before my year, and she was inspired by Jules Verne's Around the World in 80 Days novel, and she wanted to do it quicker than 80 days, so she actually did it in 76 or 72 days, was it? 72 days. Okay, so I'm going to start sticking these in now, and I mean, I use a combination of different glues. Either I use the Scotch glue stick, or sometimes I use just Mod Podge if I'm doing a big collage. This one is, I'm trying to get through quite a big kind of stash of glue. This is the Aleene's super thick tacky glue. I really like this because it is very thick and it dries pretty quick, which is always good when you're sort of collaging. So that goes there. We'll stick this one here. So I'm really enjoying this virtual travel journal project. I'm learning so much about the different countries that I'm visiting, because I'm doing research on each of the places I go, trying to find out what it was like in that time. Clearly it was quite a challenge to travel in those times, because even though flight had been the first flight had taken place. However, you know, certainly there were no passenger planes or anything like that. So all my travel is via boat, via train, via horse and carriage, that kind of thing. So that's why I did my kind of European leg of my travel was done on the Orient Express. So I talk a little bit about that in my journaling pages. So it just just to add a little bit of interest, really, more than anything else. Put that to the edge there. Okay, so let's go over to this page now. I just want to distress the edge of this torn piece here. Of course, you can also, if you don't have any of the inks, you can distress paper using a strong solution of coffee or tea. If you really make a very, very strong small espresso with lots and lots of coffee or tea, you can get quite a dark kind of dye, and you can always use that instead. You don't have to go to the expense of buying these inks, but I think if you are doing a lot of vintage junk journaling, I would definitely recommend investing in at least one of these colours that I'm using, because you know it really does make things a lot easier when you're trying to kind of give things that little bit of an older look. So we were going to put this down in the corner, so we'll put that down first. That's the problem with this particular glue, it is really thick, so sometimes hard to get it out. But actually a useful tip for that, because which I saw somewhere, I don't recall where now, when you're not using it, I just put it in a jar upside down so that it doesn't always sink to all the bottom and take ages to get out. Right, so we're going to put that in that corner. I'm so glad I found this picture. I just happened to think, oh, I wonder if that old book has any pictures, because I do recall this particular travel adventure took the circus across Europe, Russia. So I thought yes, and when I found that, I was really pleased. I don't think it's Moscow. I think it's more a rural location, but anyway, I think there was also, I think they visited Petersburg as well in the story. So by putting the sort of paisley pattern paper on each corner, it kind of creates a little bit of balance across the whole spread, which, you know, when you think about composition of your journal pages, you know, getting that kind of balance, it's really something you just sort of kind of pick up and get used to, really, I suppose. The more you do it, the more, you know, it just becomes a more sort of natural thing. And, you know, the great thing about junk journaling and these kind of journals is you don't really have to worry too much about composition. It's not, you know, it's really about getting some interesting pieces on the page, you know, telling a story, whether it's about your life or whether it's something made up like I'm doing now with the travel journal. You know, this is totally fictitious. It's not anything to do with my real life. It's a bit of a fantasy journey. It's something that travel is something I'm missing at the moment. So, you know, being able to do this is really great. And I hope that one day I might even visit some of these places in real life. Because some of these places are on my bucket list. So I think I'm going to put that sort of just off. Oh, that I think it's actually upside down. Turn it around. go. And then I think I was going to add this stamp in here as well. So as I said, all of this ephemera that you're seeing here, apart from the book page, is printed off the internet. You know, it's cost me nothing. It's all free download stuff, nothing bought. So this page has cost me very little, well, hardly anything, because I bought this book for, I think it was €2 in the brocante. So I've got a couple of things which I want to grab just to finish off this page. Okay, so I've got a couple of things I just want to add to finish this page off. This is actually a Russian ballerina, a male Russian ballerina from around about that era, which I actually found this on Graphics Fairy. So this wasn't a free download, but this is it might be a free download on Graphics Fairy, I'm not sure, but it could be one of the packages. So I've printed this onto a transparent sticky label. So I'm just going to stick him kind of across the edge here, like that. Like that. And then of course I've also printed off, I've just done them myself on my computer, printed off some labels of the countries or the cities that I'm visiting. So I also print these onto transparent paper and stick those on. So I think I might put this maybe here, yeah, just so I'm reminded at a glance of where this particular place was I visited. So that is my journal spread for Moscow, and I think my next destination is Cairo, so I'll cover that maybe in my next video. Bye for now.